we've collected over 40 client testimonials, and more than half of those testimonials came from clients that were entirely managed by our team. So in this video, I'll teach you our 7-step hiring framework that we use internally to hire world-class customer-facing employees, and how you can use this framework to find talent that is able to take ownership and make you look like an absolute genius in front of your clients. So the first thing that we do is we do all of our hiring internally. We do not use any sort of outside agency, and we do it for a simple reason: is the frequency at which we hire is so high that we just wanted to own this system from the straight up. So I'm going to show you the entire process, and the first thing that we do is we always start with a LinkedIn job ad, right? So the people we're trying to hire are either extremely talented software developers or extremely talented consultants, and those people mostly hang around on LinkedIn. So what we do is we post a LinkedIn job ad, and for every single position we kind of budget to spend a couple of $100s in ad spend to boost the job post to try to get as many applicants as possible. Usually what we do is we try to aim to have at least 200 to 300 applicants for every single position we're trying to fill. So if we're trying to fill for one role, we kind of aim to have 200 to 300. If we're trying to hire 2 people for the role, we always look to have at least 400 to 600 candidates apply on that initial job ad. The thing that we try to look for in the job ad and the sort of best practices that we try to follow is that we always try to have the budget and the salary expected compensation stated in that job ad. What that does, it number one, disqualifies people that are looking for higher paid jobs than we can offer, but it also motivates people, if you offer a competitive salary, to actually apply. So we noticed a big trend and a big shift whenever we posted the actual salary and compensation plan in the actual job listing up front, instead of waiting for it later, that we have a larger percentage of people actually end up applying for that job. And the thing we're trying to filter out when people submit their resumes and answer questions is we're trying to filter out for experience, right? Since this is a client-facing role that we're trying to hire for, the most important thing for us is really understanding, does this person have 2 to 3 years of experience of being in an account management or a client-facing role? And that's a deal breaker for us, right? So when we do our resume screening, which is usually done by our assistant, she has very specific requirements that people's resumes need to reflect, right? So if it's a client-facing role, it is absolutely always, without any question, 2 to 3 years of client-facing experience. That means someone in an account management role, someone in a consulting role, someone in a business analyst role that has dealt with clients before, that is used to running calls, that is used to communicating with clients and owning the entire client relationship. So that usually, from like, let's say 200 to 300 applicants to actual resumes that we select to sort of move forward as acceptable, usually it's about a 50% drop-off rate right there, right? So you go from having 200 applicants, you're right away down to about 100 people that can move forward. So once the resumes are filtered, the next sort of skill that we need to test for, since it's a client-facing role, is how well are their spoken communication, right? So how well are they able to run a call? Are they able to think on their feet, do problem solving live on a call? And the way we do that is in our step 3 is we request them to basically do an intro video request, right? So we tell them to send us over a video, basically telling why they think they're a good fit for this role, why they applied in the first place, and why they think they would be a great fit for our company in this specific position. And what you will see is, let's say, if you filtered out, from 200 resumes to 100 people, you'll see, again, about a 50% drop off in people that send over videos. So a lot of people are just not comfortable enough on camera to even send the video in the first place, or they're not even that motivated for the job. So when they see that request, they're just going to straight up ignore it. So it's a great way for you to filter for, number one, motivated candidates, but then also filter for people that have the good level of spoken communication that is required. They can, introduce themselves properly. They can speak eloquently, because those are all skill sets that you're going to require for people if they're going to be in any sort of client-facing role, right? And after we requested their intro video, the next thing that we're trying to test for is, are they a good communicator live on a call, right? Because most of their job will be actually talking to clients where they won't have time to prep. They won't have time to prepare a script and then learn it and then, film that on camera, and that will be it. So they're going to be forced to answer questions and ask questions super quickly, think on their feet. So the step 4 for us is always the first interview, where we do a mock client call. We do a role play. We play the client, and the candidate on the other side plays a account manager or a business analyst in our case. And what we do is we present them with a bit of context about a client that we kind of just hypothetically closed. And then what we tell them is, hey, we're going to pretend to be the client, and you're going to pretend to be our employee, and your job is to basically run an onboarding call. Your job is to run a discovery call, with the end result being like a structured brief you can then share for us internally, right? So what we tell them is they're not requested to figure out problems or figure out the solutions on how they can solve stuff. Their only job is to try to get as familiar with the client as possible and try to define whether they're pain points and whether the desired solutions that the client is trying to get at. And we do this quite structured in a way that we repeat the exact same client context to all of our candidates. So we have an accurate data set, right? And we try to keep the information that we give our candidates very unstructured, because that's the reality that your clients will give them when they actually start working, right? So this is a great filter to see, who has the skill set to run an agenda, who has the skill set to introduce themselves properly, introduce the company, introduce the goals of this specific call, and then start asking questions. And then once they wrap up the call, they can say, hey, the next steps are going to be X, Y, Z. We're going to take this internally, and then I'm going to get back to you, and then potentially schedule the next touch points, and I'm going to send you a recap over email. If they show all of those skills on this role play, this person has been in front of a client before. They're used to running a call, and ultimately that is the skill set that we're testing for. We're trying to see if this person is able to do their job. So this is the technical component of our interview process, where we're just trying to filter for the skill set. We're not trying to see if this person, is a culture fit. We're not trying to see if this person, is looking for the exact same things we can offer them. The only thing we're trying to filter for here is how well can this person do the job. Hey, if your business does over $3 million in revenue and you would want us at OpsKings to build you an entire operating system and a company brain process map of your company completely for free, click the link down below and apply if you fit the criteria so we can do this for you. So once we've filtered out, usually you're going to filter out 50% of people in the video, intro video aspects. You're going to be left with about 50 people that you will want to potentially interview. Ideally, that should be around 30. Usually, you're going to shortlist about 15 candidates to go over to the next stage. So let's say you interviewed 30 people. Again, it's going to be a 50% drop off between people that you want to shortlist and people that you want to have drop off, right? So once you shortlist the additional 50%, the next step that we do is we want to not only see, is this person a great communicator, which they've shown on a video? Are they a great communicator live, which they've shown on a mock, role play call? The next thing we're trying to see is their reasoning, their cognitive reasoning skills. So, we hire for business analysts. So a really important role for us is how well are they able to think in terms of systems and dependencies and requirements. So there are plenty of online tools that you can use to test out specific skill sets that are important for you. In marketing, these could be, copywriting skill sets. If you want for more general IQ, you can send them a general IQ test. But what this round will give you is, out of 10 to 15 people you shortlisted that shown all the skill sets thus far, it's going to give you another additional data point to be able to then filter through. Because by the time you get to round 2, which is a sort of culture fit test, which is step number 6 in our hiring process, the culture fit interview for us, we basically want to have about 10 people in this process. And in that process, the 10 people that we select, if we randomly picked any one of them, we would be happy with, their skill set. But what we're trying to do right now is the culture fit interview is usually the founders who are basically probing and trying to find out more about that person specifically. And the reason you want to do this is oftentimes you'll get people who are great at their job, they have a great skill set, but they come from a bigger company and they're not used to a smaller company, or vice versa. They come from a startup experience and you're a larger company. So in this culture fit interview, what's important is to Number one, you as the founder or the department manager or the hiring manager, to share as much information possible about what does the job actually look like? What are the requirements? What are the things that are important for you, your values, etc.? And then have a very open conversation with the candidate to see if there is any sort of match in between where the candidate wants to go and what you as the company who's looking to hire them can offer them. And I have this one sort of match that I always try to figure out, which is a company to career fit, right? So we as a company have a specific trajectory we're going. The candidate also is in a specific part of their career, and there may be at a point where they're looking to break into management. There may be in a point where they may be switching industries or fields completely, or they may be in a position in their career where they're just kind of looking for a more steadier, easier job. Those are things that are very important for you to communicate and understand about the candidate, so you can then filter out the final few that you want to give an offer to. Usually these calls last about an hour because we really want to have an open conversations. They're not super structured in terms of specific questions we asked. I'd say a lot of it is us communicating to them what we require and then communicating back to us what are their things that are important for them. And then the final step is once you shortlist from those 10 people, I'd say you want to ideally have at least 2 to 3 people that are your top picks. So you want to have your top 3 picks ready for step 7, which is the actual offer. Even though you're just hiring for one position, you want to have at least 3 people that you're happy with to give an offer. And the simple reason you want to have that, you don't want to be in a position where you have your top pick and that's the only person you give an offer. You send them an offer and then for one reason or the other, the negotiations fall through and they don't end up signing. Now you have to repeat the entire process or try to find someone that you already said them no. It's just a bad situation to have. So usually we like to shortlist for one position we're hiring for at least 3 people ready for an offer. And then what we do is we send over the first offer to the top candidate, the top pick, and then go through the negotiation phase with them. If that ends up coming through, awesome, we got our top pick and that is the hire that we wanted to hire. If that for one reason or the other doesn't come through, we then select our second pick and send them an offer. And then we kind of go through this phase, and usually if all 3 people that you sent an offer reject the offer and don't take it, you probably have a problem with the compensation or some of the terms you're offering for this role. So that's something to be cognizant. But one rule of thumb is never reject anyone before you've gotten a written acceptance of the offer, especially your top 3 picks. Just be very transparent, communicate to the candidates. And one of the things that all of our candidates, and this is more like employer branding, that would be super important for highlight, and all of our candidates always say that this is the favorite part about this process, is we try to give people feedback at every step of the process. Which means after the interview, we tell them, hey, here are the things that you did well, here are the things that you can improve on. In the offer, if we don't end up sending them the offer, we always communicate why we picked someone else. And, we always try to hyper communicate with candidates because you never know if that candidate is going to apply later. And if that candidate knows some other people, you want to make sure that you're basically presenting your company in the best way. Just as if you were presenting it to the clients, you want to make sure you're presenting your company in the best way for candidates. So now that you have the person who you picked, they've accepted the offer, you're now kind of getting started with the onboarding. The critical part is, how do you take someone that's a brand new person and turn them into a superstar who can not only generate you results, but generate results for your clients without a lot of your input. So what we do is we have a 4-level progression mechanism that we use to train up a brand new person and turn them into a superstar. The first thing is you're going to have what we call a level 0. And a level 0 is a person who doesn't know anything about your process, doesn't know anything about how you deliver your service and how they can be valuable to your clients. And the level 0 person, really what they do for the first week or 2 is they just shadow people while they're working. They're shadowing calls, they're shadowing work sessions, and they're just being what we call a useful idiot, right? So they're, just shadowing, trying to gather information, just trying to gather terms you're using. They're going through your training material. They're going through your documentation. We're not expecting them to be useful in the first week or two at all. We're just trying to get them comfortable being on a call with a client, saying hi, and pretty much shutting up until their senior kind of colleague takes care of everything else. Usually about a week or two in, they're now kind of understand how things are happening, how the calls look. They went through your training docs, your onboarding material, and the level 1 is basically a person who can handle written communication. That means a level 1 is a person who can send over, the post-call notes. This is a person who can send over the call agenda before the call. This is a person who can, on a specific call, maybe not lead the call, but they're definitely now starting to become more engaged in the conversations. Clients at this point, they're getting used to seeing this person. They're getting used to, getting emails or getting Slack messages from this person. So you're slowly starting to build up the trust with your clients. And this person is also starting to build up confidence that, hey, we can communicate well with clients as well. An L2 for us is a person who can not only be on calls, but this is a person who can start leading calls, which means they still have a senior team member on a call, monitoring them, being there to help out. But this person is now capable to run a call with a client with supervision, right? So now at this point, their client should be more than comfortable seeing this person. They know this person. They saw him on multiple calls. And they're now at a point where, all right, cool. They've gathered some confidence. The client now trusts them a bit, and they're now able to lead a call. You still have a senior team member correcting them when needed, but an L2 person should be basically more than capable of running an entire call. So hopping on a call, introducing the agenda, going through the action items and the action points that they need to go through, and then recap the call and next steps. The reason you still want to have a senior person is they might not still have all of the context on specific edge cases and situations that you might encounter that are not a part of the training manual, right? So you cannot possibly catch all of the edge cases. So they might get a question or two that's sort of outside of what they experienced thus far. And that's why it's always useful to have a more senior team member kind of shadowing them, more being in the background, but being there to step in so a client doesn't have a bad experience. And this process usually lasts about a month or two to get them super comfortable. And by the time an L2 is ready to become an L3, and an L3 is a person now owning the entire client relationship, both from the verbal side, so being able to hop on calls, the written side as well, but also now starting to be the main point of contact. That's someone that the client naturally goes to. The only thing that's separating them from an L2 to an L3 is reps. It's not necessarily skill set, it's just how many reps have you done of calls, how many reps of specific situations have you dealt with that you're now fully comfortable being the main point of contact. And what happens is naturally some clients start referring to the L2 as their main point of contact because the L2 is starting to become useful for them. The L2 is the first person to answer the email. The L2 is the first person to answer the Slack message. The L2 is the first person when on a call has all the answers. They're the most prepared person on that meeting. So the L2 naturally sort of graduates into being an L3, and that's now a person who can entirely own the client relationship without any intervention from you as the manager or a senior colleague who's sort of their buddy shadowing them through this process. And that's how you take someone who's, a brand new employee, brand new client-facing employee, and turn them into an L3, which is an employee who can own the entire client relationship and become the main point of contact. So now you have the entire framework of how to take a stranger, figure out of a group of strangers who is the right person for your company, and then take that stranger and have them become an absolute champion inside of your company. The number one thing that's important to understand is that that person understands the process of how everything happens in your company. Otherwise, they're going to be completely lost and you're going to be forced to show them absolutely everything. And the best way to do that is to have a process map of how everything happens in your business. And if you want to learn how you can do that, you can watch this next video.